RefChat, where we get to know those that we work with a little bit better. We are out and about today talking to fellow sports officials, in this case, basketball officials, people we normally work with, just to understand and know them a little bit better. Today, we're visiting with Kelly Kinghorn. Hello, Kelly.
Hi, Bob. Glad to be here.
Yeah. Tell us a little bit about yourself. What is it that you want everybody to know about Kelly Kinghorn?
Oh, gosh, probably less is better. So I've been a basketball official. This season will be my 27th. I'm a one-sport guy, passionate about the game and trying to get better, keep improving what I do. And at the stage I'm at in my career, I'm also very passionate about trying to give back to the game and to help make officiating in our area better.
So 25 plus years, obviously you found a niche, you like it, or at least it's comfortable for you.
Yeah.
What caused you to get started in the first place?
So many people in the state know my brother Brett, who's also a sports official. He actually started before I did. He's a year older than me, went to college a year before me. We went to the same school, and he had taken an officiating class, said, hey, you got to do this. You'll really like it. And so I took the class, and I liked it. The curious thing to me was the instructor in the class never once said, hey, if you like this and think you're any good at it, you got to join our local high school group.
Really?
It's funny to me that you would teach an officiating class and never once bring that up. But Anyway, so I took that and then didn't think too much about officiating after that. We refereed the intramurals at the school. Fast forward to several years later, I graduated from college, was living in Los Angeles with my wife, and I played in a church basketball game. And as happens lots of times in those, they said, hey, we need somebody to stick around and ref. And so I said, well, I'll stick around and ref. That's fine. And the guy that I refed with at the end of the game said, hey, you're pretty good at this. You ought to think about refereeing high school basketball. I've done it for 20 plus years, and you don't have a clue about where to stand or how to do the right signals, but you understand what to call, and so you got to do this. And I thought, maybe I'll do that.
So it was as simple as somebody asking you.
What's that?
It was as simple as someone, a stranger, asking you.
Yeah. Well, but then about 2 weeks later, Brett called me, and he had started. That season had started refereeing basketball.
Okay.
Somebody that he knew said, hey, you got to do this, and he started doing it, and he fell in love with it and said, hey, you need to do it. So I decided between those two guys encouraging me that the next season, this was probably in about January, the next season I was going to start doing it. And in between, I changed jobs, moved to Salt Lake City, and contacted the High School Activities Association, said I want to be a ref, and they sent me the paperwork at that time, filled it out, and I was on my way.
Okay. Looking back over your shoulder, has it been a good career choice? What are some of the highlights, the lowlights?
It's been terrific. Something that I value very highly in my life. I would say that the vast majority of my close friends at this stage in my life are sports officials.
Okay.
So that's been great. Highlights are simple. The number one highlight for me was the 2014 4A Boys State Championship game that I refereed with my brother.
Nice.
Far and away the highlight of my career.
Who's a better official, you or your brother?
What's that?
Who's a better official, you or your brother?
He is.
Okay. And now that we're getting going for this year's seasons, what's your goal? What are you looking forward to? I mean, you've done it 25 plus years. Is there anything left to look forward to?
Well, it's interesting. At this stage, I get the games I get, and I'm okay with that. But there's always, working the state tournament's always a big deal to me. I've done several state championships. Always want to do one more. It's always nice to have your name called on the last day of the season. And so that's always the goal. The state of Utah has a rule that you can't do it in consecutive years. And I did one 2 years ago. So this is a year that I would be eligible. So in every year that I'm eligible, that's always my goal.
Keep my fingers crossed for you.
Yeah.
The term official, the term referee, when you hear people use those words, what pops into your mind?
For me, I think about associations with people, the officials that I know. Usually they're upset about it, or they're upset about something they've done. That's how most people, I think, tend to associate sports officials, is, they don't like what they do. But, I've kind of been a ref apologist for a number of years and have said to people, without sports officials, the game suffers. We need sports officials. And they all agree that, yes, it needs to happen. Yes, we need officials. Of course, I encourage them to join, and nobody ever wants to join up, but they're happy to criticize, but don't want to do anything about trying to make it better.
Well, game day comes around. I know my routine. I know where I'm going. I know who I'm going with. I know what time to get there. I know the teams that are playing X, Y, and Z. I can adjust my meal schedules around it so that I'm got some nourishment in my body and I'm well hydrated and stuff. Walk me through your game day.
So the morning of a game, I will pack my bag. I refuse to let anyone else do it. My wife is a sweetheart, has washed my uniform for 27 years and has never once complained about it. I've never washed my uniform. She does it for me. But I pack my bag. So pack my bag, make sure that I have everything, and I pack my bag in a very specific way to make sure, so I can look quickly and make sure that I have everything. And then go to work, obviously. I'm kind of funny. My stomach is I don't like to have any food in my stomach when I officiate or when I do any kind of sports activity. So I have a hard 3-hour rule. So I make sure that I eat. If it's a 7:00 tip off, I make sure about 3:30 I'm getting something to eat. So I've eaten by 4. Go to the gym. Try and take off as early as I can to get to the gym. If I can watch part of the freshman game, I try and get there to watch the freshman game. I will always watch a JV game. I try and be there for the tip-off, if I can, of the JV game. I bring a pad of paper. I'm still old school. I like that better than an electronic device to take notes, but I take paper and a pen and a clipboard with me, take notes on the JV guys. I try and give them helpful, practical advice that'll help them to get better. And try and give them advice that isn't something they're going to hear from their partner, the guy next door. I mean, it's pretty easy to tell. The easiest thing to look at is signals, and that's the easiest thing to critique. And I try to never talk about signals. I try to talk about positioning, game awareness, call selection, interactions with coaches and players, things like that, about how can we handle those situations. Those are the kind of things I try and have for them. But it also helps me get into game mode and think about, what's going to happen at 7:00 when we tip off and what I need to be prepared for.
Okay. Your co-officials for any given night. How does that come into the mix? In other words, are you concerned about co-officials? And if you are, what concerns you? What are the do's and don'ts as far as expectations for your partners?
That's a good question. Am I concerned about partners? Absolutely. I'm more concerned about who my partners are than who the game is. When I get a game assignment, the first thing I want to see is, who am I officiating with? And the co-officials are going to really dictate how the pregame goes and how our night goes. If it's somebody who's experienced, who I've refereed with before, who I have some level of comfort with, obviously that makes me feel comfortable. If it's a newer guy, I would never say that I'm uncomfortable, but I'm a little more aware of that person. So our pregame, I conduct my pregame much the same way, no matter who I'm officiating with. I always start with the U2 and ask them what's on their mind. I want to know what they're thinking about, or is there anything they're worried about, anything that they're thinking about going into the game, so we can make that partner, who's generally the new guy, as comfortable as possible in a circumstance. Then I ask the U1 what's on his mind or her mind. talk about those kind of things. And I always have a list of things that I think are important that we talk about. My list includes things like being good partners, paying attention to the calls that our partners are making and that we match good calls. Making sure that we get open looks and we only call things we see. Talk about how we want to deal with the coaches, especially if it's a coach that we know can be difficult to deal with. But I also try and be, if I'm the crew chief, even if I'm not the crew chief, I guess at this point, I'm happy to go run interference for a new guy. I want him to be comfortable. I want him to be able to do his job and not have to worry about a coach beating down on him. So I'll go run interference for a newer official to make sure that our game can go as smoothly as possible.
Okay. You mentioned good, the word good, a couple of times there. You want to be a good partner. You want to make good calls. What is good? In other words, what's a good co-official? When you look at another official, the world according to Kelly Kinghorn, what's good
we're a team.
Okay.
And so, I think lots of coaches try and divide and conquer. They try and pit one of us against the other one. And I think that's our job. To be a good co-official is to be a teammate. You may have blown the call. I may have blown the call. But if I blow a call and coach comes right up to you and Bob, Kelly's blah, 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 and you start agreeing with him, and you may know I blew the call. But I think our job is to help protect our team. And good calls are ones we see. Bad calls are ones we don't see. And I think too often we get officials who make play calls in secondary coverage areas without a great look, with a pretty good look. And to me, if I'm going to go out of my primary area, I'm going to be 100% sure that it's a foul and it's something we need. So I'm very hesitant to call out of my area. Okay. To me, that's, things I see are good calls. In fact, I've taken the word think out of my officiating vocabulary. People say, well, I think this happened or I think that happened. Well, all it says to me is you didn't see it, because if you saw it, you'd know what happened. If a coach asks me, I tell him, here's what I saw. Those are the words that I use. Here's what I saw. Your player did this, their player did that. I made a judgment based on that. I never said, well, I thought this guy did this, or I thought that girl did that, because thought says I didn't see it.
Okay. Any given night, we can have any given teams the referee. Any given night, we can have any given referee to be on our team and partners. How do you adjust to different officials on any given night? What are the challenges?
It's interesting. I've spent most of my officiating career in Salt Lake, and there's a few officials up there who are very strong-willed, strong personality type, very A-type, domineering kind of people. And a lot of these guys have very different styles. Some call lots of fouls, some don't call very many fouls. To me, the real challenge is when you have the Mr. Call a lot and Mr. Don't call a lot on the same crew, and you're the guy in the middle. And how do you bring that all together so that, we look like a team, that we're calling the same action the same way, no matter who it's in front of. When it's a newer guy, newer lady, to me, you can just try and get them to step up their game a little bit, and you can kind of notch yours down a little bit to try and find that median. The hard one to me is when you've got two good officials who just philosophically approach the game very differently, and you're the guy in the middle trying to be the gel that holds it all together. To me, that's a pregame thing to start talking about some of those borderline areas. How do we want to deal with hands? How do we want to deal with post play? How do we want to deal with rough play? How do we want to deal with loose ball contact? So that we have come to an agreement that the three of us are going to, at least start from the same guideline.
Okay. All at once, Kelly Kinghorn's in charge of everything. Kelly Kinghorn can make things happen. If that were the case, what would you do for officials as a group? What would you change so that we all got better? What's the
We all got better.
Yeah.
I know some rules I'd change, but I don't know that would make any of us any better. I think the thing that would make us all better is for all of us to take it a little more seriously. It's an avocation. It's not the way the vast majority of people who officiate make their living. There's a small subset who do, but most of us don't. And it's pretty obvious to me that people who take it seriously, who watch film, who get into their rule book, who talk about plays, who discuss what's going on, and those who show up, at 6 o'clock for a 7 o'clock game, and we'll just get this done and we'll be fine. I think that's the number one thing is people need to treat it. And Bob, I coach football, and I put in a lot of time preparing a game plan, deciding what to do at practice, trying to get our kids ready to win. And basketball coaches do the same thing. If we don't take it as seriously as they do, I think we're doing them and the players a disservice. I really think we need to take it as seriously as they do. And I think that the wake up to me many years ago, I was reffing a junior college game, and I made I don't remember the call. It was probably a bad call. And I end up over by the coach, and that was one of the times when men's college went tableside after a foul instead of opposite like they do now. And coach came up to me and he said, this is my job. I don't teach driver's ed. I don't teach math. I coach basketball, and crappy calls like that get me fired. And I have a family. I need to keep my job. And it made me think not just about at the college level, but at every level. Coaches are passionate and competitive. They want to win, and we've got to be at the level that they're at in terms of our commitment, I think, to make the game better. So I think most officials just don't realize how hard coaches work to try and win. And I think if we took the same kind of approach, we'd be better as a group.
Okay. Final thoughts? What haven't we talked about? What do you want us to know? What do you want us to hear?
This is such a rich, rewarding avocation. It is a way to stay involved with the game. I'm a much better official than I ever was a player. I've refereed at levels I didn't play at, couldn't play at. But, in my 50s, I'm able to stay connected to a game that I love, get the best seat in the house. And I get to rub shoulders with, frankly, some of the best people I've ever met. People who are passionate and dedicated and just good people who want to do good things. And for the money we make in high school, you're doing it because you love it, not because you're making a bunch of money. We're doing things for somebody else. In this case, the players, the young men and the young women who come out and play high school sports. And I think it's just a tremendous thing. It's something that's been a real blessing in my life, has made me a better person.
Very good. Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm glad to get in early and set the bar low for everybody else.
You've done that.